I used to think families were built on unconditional love, that even when things got hard, even when you didn't see eye to eye, there was still something sacred about the bond you shared. I used to think that way, before I learned what it felt like to be the shadow behind a golden child, and worse, what it felt like to be completely erased. My name is Ava. I'm 28 years old, and I come from a house that never really felt like home. Not because we didn't have enough and we had plenty, but because there was never enough for me. I'm the oldest. My sister, Lily, is 3 years younger. Growing up, we were close in the way sisters forced to share a room are. Secrets whispered late at night, laughter over silly fights, shared tears when boys broke our hearts. But underneath all that was something else, a quiet hierarchy, one I didn't fully recognize until it was too late. Lily was the bright one, the pretty one, the one with the spark. That's what Mom always said, you just have this spark, Lily, people notice you. I had good grades, a job at 16, and dreams of becoming a writer, but I was practical, self-sufficient, low maintenance, in our house that meant forgotten. I remember my 25th birthday vividly. It was in the middle of a snowstorm. I had just gotten back from a long shift at the bookstore and walked into our parents' house for dinner. Lily was already there, glowing as usual, talking about some new business idea. She had some boutique skincare line she wanted to launch organically. Dad poured champagne. Mom brought out the cake, and then came the gifts for me, a card. Inside it, a poem printed from the internet. No cash, no check. No mention of the promotion I just earned, or the 3 years of student loans I was crushing under. For Lily, an envelope full of legal documents, a trust, a real lawyer written trust worth $240,000. Signed, sealed, notarized. Lily squealed, cried, threw her arms around our parents like she was in a movie. I just sat there stunned. My fork was still halfway to my mouth. This is for your future, Mom said softly to Lily, brushing her hair back. We wanted to give you something meaningful. I looked around the room, waiting for my turn. Some explanation, a second envelope, something it never came. I asked quietly, did you set one up for me too? They exchanged a look. A loaded, uncomfortable look. Mom said at first, sweetheart, we knew you wouldn't need one. You've always been so independent. You've never asked us for anything. Dad nodded. You're stronger, Ava. Lily's different. She needs more of a cushion. You understand, right? No, I didn't. I didn't understand then. I still don't. That night I drove home in silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even slam the door. I just sat in the dark in my tiny apartment, looking at that stupid card with the poem. The months that followed widened the gap. Lily used part of the trust to start her skincare line. It failed within 6 months. She used more to rebrand, which meant booking influencers and throwing parties in rented Airbnbs. That didn't work either, but there was always more money, more patience, more forgiveness. Me, I picked up weekend shifts, freelanced articles online, paid off 2 credit cards, moved apartments twice, still no calls from home asking how I was. Just updates about Lily's latest entrepreneurial venture. I started saying no. No to birthdays, no to holidays. No to pretending everything was okay. The final straw came with her engagement. Lily got engaged to Daniel, a perfectly nice, painfully bland finance guy. The engagement party was at some country club I didn't even know existed. My invitation came via email. No call, no text, just a link to an RSVP page and a picture of Lily in a white dress, grinning like she'd won something. When I arrived, I didn't recognize most of the faces. Her friends were rich, polished, and ruthless. Everyone was talking about venues, rings, and registries. My name wasn't on the seating chart. I had to ask a waiter where I was supposed to sit. He pointed to a table near the back, beautifully decorated, like all the others, but one chair stood out. It was empty, a single white chair, no name card, just a small sign in cursive font that read, reserved. That was my seat. I sat there alone for 10 minutes before I got up and left. It's a strange thing to be erased, to be present, but invisible. To watch your own parents plan an extravagant wedding for one daughter while treating the other like an afterthought. I never confronted them. I didn't yell or make a scene. That would have only confirmed their narrative, that I was dramatic, bitter, jealous. Instead, I disappeared. Quietly, fully, I stopped responding to texts, moved without telling them, changed jobs, went to therapy. Found peace in small, steady ways, journaling, hiking, drinking coffee alone on Sunday mornings. I built a life without them in it. But I never forgot the trust, the chair, the silence. People say revenge is toxic, that holding onto resentment only poisons the person who carries it. Maybe that's true, but some betrayals are too big to forgive. Some lessons have to be taught the hard way. So when the wedding date was finally announced, a grand event at an oceanside vineyard with a guest list of 200, I didn't RSVP. Instead, I started planning, not to hurt, not to destroy, but to remind them all that I wasn't gone, that I saw everything, that I remembered, and that sometimes the quiet one is the one you should never underestimate. They say silence is the loudest scream. I had been quiet for years, no confrontations, no ultimatums. I left like a ghost, just enough distance to preserve my sanity and protect what little self-worth I still had. But I didn't forget, and I didn't forgive. After the empty chair incident, I stopped checking my family's social media accounts, but I still knew everything. People talked, old classmates messaged me, sometimes out of confusion, sometimes out of concern. One even asked if I'd moved overseas because I was never at family events. No, I hadn't moved overseas. I had just stopped pretending I belonged. It wasn't until I was scrolling through an old flash drive one evening, 3 years later, that the idea of revenge first crept in, not as rage, but as something colder, clearer, more calculated. On that flash drive were old tax forms, scanned receipts, and digital records, including a file I had copied once, years ago, when I helped my dad digitize financial documents. It wasn't something I'd thought about since, but now, with Lily's wedding 3 months away, it became something else. A spark inside the folder were details of the trust, the lawyer's name, the account custodian, the payout structure. As someone who now worked in communications at a legal startup, I knew exactly how to access the public business filings connected to Lily's failed skincare brand. I spent a week digging deeper, no hacking, no illegal access, just smart searching, open records, and digital footprints Lily never realized she left behind. What I found made my blood turn to ice. She had burned through nearly the entire $240,000 trust in under 2 years. On Instagram, worthy vacations, luxury handbags, influencer marketing campaigns, and a now defunct LLC that hadn't filed taxes in over a year. Worse, she'd lied to her fiancé, claiming the trust was still active, that it was being used wisely, as an emergency fund for their future. There was no money left, only a hollow image she was desperate to protect, and still, my parents funded her wedding. It was obscene, $70,000 vineyard venue, custom floral arches, a string quartet, vegan fusion, catering flown in from another state. The same parents who once told me they couldn't help with a $500 car repair were now hosting a wedding straight out of a lifestyle magazine. I was invited, of course, out of obligation, nothing more. The invitation was formal, cream cardstock, gold foil, my name embossed in script. The RSVP card didn't say +1. There was no note, just directions to the venue and a passive-aggressive reminder about the garden formal dress code. I didn't respond. Instead, I made a plan. I wasn't going to sabotage the wedding, not directly, that wasn't my style. But truth, that was fair game. So, I crafted a little envelope. No return address, no fingerprints, no threats or lies, just truth. Inside, a timeline of Lily's trust fund disbursements, drawn from public filings and leaked from an anonymous, concerned third party. There were screenshots of Instagram posts, the Bali retreat, the Paris shopping spree, the business expenses, that were clearly nothing more than luxury indulgences. Also inside, proof that her business LLC was dissolved by the state for failure to pay franchise taxes, a polite letter of inquiry to her fiancé's family's law firm, and a warning, one that suggested Lily may have misrepresented her financial situation going into the marriage. I didn't send it to Lily. I sent it to the groom's sister, a financial analyst who, based on her LinkedIn and the vibe I got from the engagement party, didn't like Lily from day one. I didn't expect an explosion, but I knew this match was soaked in gasoline. The week before the wedding, I took PTO and flew to a quiet beach town. A small hotel, a view of the ocean, no TV, no laptop, just peace and wine. The messages started 3 days before the wedding. First, from my mother. Mom, Ava, what did you do? Lily's devastated. Daniel's family is asking questions. If this is your way of getting attention, it's disgusting. Then my sister, Lily, you're a snake. I knew you hated me, but this is evil. You ruined everything. And finally, my father, Dad. I can't even look at your name right now. You've crossed a line. Your mother is crying. I hope you're proud. I turned off my phone. The tide rolled in. The sun set. The waves didn't care. Neither did I. Later, I found out what happened in pieces. The groom's family called a meeting 2 days before the ceremony. They confronted Lily with the documents. She tried to lie, then broke down. Daniel felt blindsided, betrayed. He postponed the wedding indefinitely. Vendors weren't refunded. Guests weren't notified in time. Half of them showed up to a ghost wedding. My parents were humiliated. Photos from the vineyard leaked on social media, showing empty chairs and a $600 flower arch going to waste. I didn't go, I didn't need to. The chair they once reserved for me, the one left symbolically empty, had returned to haunt them. This time, every chair was empty. Some weddings are remembered for the dress, some for the kiss. Lily's wedding was remembered for the silence, not the romantic kind, not the hush before vows or the stillness before music, but the sharp, heavy silence that follows disaster, the kind that makes people stare at each other across white tablecloths and wonder who knew what and when. By the time I returned from my quiet beach escape, the storm had already passed, but the wreckage was everywhere. News traveled fast in our town. It always does. And even though no one dared to say my name out loud, everyone suspected it. Everyone felt it, the forgotten daughter, the one who disappeared, the one they left a chair for once. And now, the one who had flipped the entire wedding on its head. From what I gathered, here's what happened. The groom, Daniel, had been blindsided. His family's legal counsel, likely his sister, ran a financial check after receiving the anonymous packet. When it revealed Lily's trust fund had been emptied, they approached her directly. She panicked, lied, changed stories, said it was being managed, then invested, then loaned to a friend, then finally gone. What broke him, I'm told, wasn't the money. It was the lying, the months of smiling and playing house while hiding secrets, the calculated manipulation, the vision of a shared future that was built on fiction. He called off the wedding 2 days before the event. But no one told the guests. Hundreds of people arrived that weekend, dressed in florals and pastels, heels sinking into soft vineyard grass. The decorations were immaculate, the catering was laid out, the string quartet was tuning their instruments. But there was no bride, no groom, no ceremony, just whispers. People took photos anyway, of the cake no one cut. Of the altar no one stood under. Of the bride's parents, my parents, pacing, arguing, crying. My mother in a $300 dress, looking like she'd aged a decade in a day. My father red-faced, shouting at the wedding planner. Eventually, they tried to salvage it, turning it into a celebration of love, with no specific couple in mind. An open bar, an awkward toast. Guests left early, some never even got out of their cars. The flower arrangements went viral on TikTok. Rich girl's wedding called off, $70K down the drain Skullboo. K, wine, one video caption read, with Lily's full name in the comments. She deleted all her social media within 48 hours. I didn't reach out, not to gloat, not to explain. Not even to say I told you so. I stayed quiet, not out of guilt, but because I realized something powerful. I didn't owe them anything anymore. Not my voice, not my side of the story, not my forgiveness. For the first time in my life, I got to decide who I wanted in my life, and they weren't on the list. A week later, a letter arrived at my apartment, real letter, ink handwritten. It was from my mother. She didn't apologize, not exactly. She said she wished things had been handled differently, that she never meant to make me feel lesser. That the trust fund had been about helping Lily find herself. Not a single sentence about me, my struggles. My pain, my absence, not one acknowledgement of the years I lived alone, unheard, surviving while they threw lifelines to the daughter who already had everything. But she ended it with this: "We hope one day we can sit down together again at a table with no empty chairs between us." It should have meant something. But it didn't, because there was always a chair between us. Even when I was in the room, Lily tried once too. A short, cold email, no subject line. "If this was your way of punishing me, congrats. Hope you sleep well at night." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She wasn't writing to apologize. She was writing because the world had finally stopped clapping, and the silence was too much for her to bear. So where am I now? I live in a different city, a place with seasons that match my mood, quiet, slow, thoughtful. I work in editorial for a nonprofit magazine, writing stories that matter. I mentor 2 young women through a local writing program. I grow herbs on my windowsill. I drink tea before bed. I am not rich. I am not famous, but I am free. I went no contact with my family 6 months ago. Completely. No birthdays, no holidays, no more half-hearted gestures that sting more than they soothe. Some people say that's harsh. That family is family, but they weren't my family, not really, not when it counted. They made that choice every time they reminded me I was the independent one, the strong one, the one who didn't need anything. They called it strength. But what they really meant was, "We don't want to give you anything. I don't regret what I did. I didn't ruin a wedding." I revealed a truth. They handed Lily a fortune and handed me a poem. They crowned her the future and made me the footnote. But I wrote my own story, and in the end, the girl they overlooked, the one they dismissed, became the only one who didn't need a chair at their table. Because she built her own, stronger, wiser, warmer, and at my table, every seat is filled with people who see me, hear me, and love me, not in spite of who I am, but because of it.